Hello and welcome. Today we're going over the Piano Adventures Accelerated Lesson Book 1. We'll be on page 31 with Starlit Melody. This will be one of the first times where I don't go over the whole spiel of sight reading immediately. As the songs are starting to get longer, there are starting to be more notes. Instead, let's talk about how we do line breaks, which is where every time the line starts again is when we probably feel the most insecure about what the notes are, as when we see the notes stepping up, stepping down, skipping up, or skipping down, we can use the relative information about how much higher or lower the notes went from the previous note. But when you jump to a new line, that's when the insecurity starts of what note is that? And we have to look back to the previous line or just use memorization to do that. So to make our sight reading feel more secure, let's go through the beginning of every single line and identify the first note of the right hand and the first note of the left hand. Just like they ask us to do at the beginning of the song, but we'll do it every single line. This is going to replace the flashcards. Both that way you don't need to invest in flashcards, but also you're not going to be reviewing random notes that you don't actually use right before you play. And then it's like, why do I do flashcards? They're asking me about really high, really low notes that I don't know yet. And then when you go to play music, you don't feel like you've just reviewed notes that are in the register in the range that you're going to be using a lot. We take a look at line 1, and they do give us the places to answer. 5 on what? Well, we take our 3 landmarks. We take our treble G, middle C, and bass F. This is one of our landmark notes. It's higher than the middle C, so this is our line 2 treble G. And we take our finger 5 on the treble G. Now we look for the first note of the left hand, and we notice this note is below the middle C, but above the bass F. It's closer to the middle C, and it's only a second below. That would be our B. In our left hand, we take our 1 on B. In our right hand, our 5 on G. We get neighbors on this song with our thumbs on neighboring keys next to each other. Now we'll go through and do the same thing each line. In line 2, measure 5, I see a line note. It is higher than my middle C, but lower than my treble G. So it is one of these 3 white keys. It's a line note, so it must be the third above middle C, my E. We look for the first note of our left hand, and it looks the same as the previous line. This is a B. Feel free to not write it in. That's going to start making you feel more comfortable that you can identify notes by sight quickly, faster than you could write them down. We go to the next line, line 3, measure 9, and this one starts in the left hand. This note is below the middle C, but above the bass F. It is a line note, so it is the skip above the bass F, our A. In our right hand, this is our middle C, most famous note. We can still definitely write it in until we feel like, man, I knew that lightning fast. We go to our next line in line 4, measure 13. Oh, it's my A in the left hand, C in the right hand. The same 2 notes we just saw, we should have immediately identified those notes. Now going on to our final line, measure 16, I see 2 notes in my right hand. They are both above the middle C, but they are both below the treble G. They are space notes, so one of them is a step above the middle C, and the other one's a step below the treble G. And they are a third apart, with the letters D on the bottom, F on the top. But rather than playing them 2-4, we see the fingerings above 1-3, we are lifting and putting 1 and 3 on the D and the F. And we look at the very end. There is one note in the left hand, and it looks really weird. It's not really high, it's really low. And they even tell us it is the lowest C. We find our lowest chopsticks on the piano, and we have 5 on the lowest C. Great. Writing those in next to the notes will give us a great place to recover and feel like we're confidently starting every line. That way, if we're a bit spooked about our sight reading, we can have confidence now, both in starting every line correctly. Now we play the song, we've reviewed basically every single note that we'll need to read in the song. We can identify them by sight so much faster now. With our Starlit Melody, we do have some interesting phrasing where we'll see the first slur covers the first line, but there are two notes being slurred coming from the measure 4 into measure 5. We want to make sure we can break that naturally. Golden starry light is shining down. Breathe. There's a magic starry glow that fills the town. And there, just like I would breathe on the period after down, we make that musical breath as well. As we've done with many of our songs, we also can make sure that we are emphasizing beat 1 of each measure since the song is in 4/4. To do this, we'll start by putting full accents on the notes, and we'll take just our first phrase. Now that doesn't sound very good, of course, so we take a little bit of the arm weight out and use our ears to find what does sound good. Already I like that a bit more, but let me try something else. Let me try a little bit more emphasis. That also sounds pretty nice, and it's a subtle difference. That's where there's going to be many more than one answer, and that is the artistic choice that we have as a musician. Probably a lot of people look at this last line, they see a bunch of circled numbers, they see a bunch of letters written in the notes. That's where they might have gotten a bit confused up until they started seeing the letters inside the notes, and they stare down at their keys and think, oh, I'll just copy the letters on the page, which is fine. That's a great place to start. But this is where we can take intervals in many different ways. In measure 15, I see my C and my E. They form a third. And then measures 16 to the end, I see two different intervals appearing. I see all pairs of thirds. These are all also thirds. But now I can also compare these groups of thirds and say that each third is moving up by a second, using both vertical intervals and using horizontal intervals as well. When we see the grow louder, do your best and try to see what you can get out of this. On an electronic keyboard, there's usually going to be about 6 to 8 dynamic levels on the keys, and you can actually start feeling out where these levels change based on the touch you give into the piano. When you have an acoustic piano, even if it's a cheaper one like I have, the great thing is there is an infinite level of dynamic gradations. I can get all sorts of dynamics based on touch, which is where I have a more expensive keyboard upstairs that I could use. But yeah, I still spend all my time playing on an older, cheaper upright because I get so much more touch out of the piano, and it really takes exactly what I want to do with my body and gives me something in response to it. And I'm never having to worry about what the electronics are doing. I might worry about what the mechanics of my piano do, but that is something that can be tuned and that I can work around. And now we see at the end, we have our suddenly piano. And in the right hand, what we really want to focus on is firm fingertips. If I was to take a pencil, a very firm object, we can take the eraser of this pencil and I can press down quickly. And I get a loud sound. I can press the key down slowly. What this tells us is having a firm object that won't bend and won't lose energy is one of the keys to having consistent sound on the piano, regardless if I'm playing loud or soft. If I was to now take my finger and have my finger be really loose, as people might think, oh, I just need to make my fingers looser and lighter, and that's how I play softer. And now, since my finger's bending really loosely, so much of the energy from my arm and my finger are being lost in transit, and it's so hard for me to control this sound that often I'm not getting any sound out of my piano when I try to play soft. Instead, I want to think about making this bridge strong and firm and simply moving slowly. And I get a soft sound. Whether I move from my heavy fingertips or if I move from my arms slowly. Very similar types of sound, but two different ways to approach it. One more time for my arm, moving slowly, and now making sure my arm is relaxed and low, heavy, wet ropes. I take these very heavy fingertips and I press down with heavy fingertips slowly. As long as I've got a firm object touching the piano with weight, I get consistent sound, whether I want loud or soft. If my fingers are loose, I get inconsistency. Or if my shoulder is holding too much of the weight up with my arm, even if my fingers are very firm, then I don't have as much control and as much consistency. Having heavy fingertips is key to consistent playing and consistent tone. I relax my arm down, I let the weight settle into the tips of my fingers to where the tips feel wet. They come up. They make consistently soft sound. Same thing, I can make sure my arm is nice and loose. I lift a little bit and I drop now for my arm. And as long as I drop the arm slowly, I still get a soft sound. If I drop the arm faster, then I get a bigger sound. I get the forte sound. On this very last note with the lowest C, we want to make sure we do what's called a soft landing. I get my 5 onto the C, and if I land all in one motion onto the key, it's a pretty loud note. Because of taking all the velocity of this arm into the key. Instead, we have to do a soft landing where I touch the key without a sound, and now whether I want to use a heavy finger or I want to use a heavy arm, I get a much softer sound than the entire motion. Now let's take measures 13 to the end, seeing how this works. Piano. And that's how we get the consistency. If you're doing this and notes aren't responding, or there's a lot of randomness to how notes speak, this is a great way to get the consistency across the dynamic range of the piano. Happy practicing.